Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Vaults Remastered. Today's episode is going to be getting back into primordials, the lore of the deities, the gods, the entities of worship in my homebrewed game world known as the Vaults, a Darklands Underdark analog. This episode is going to be about Ahriman, the Dread Shadow, Prince of Anarchy, Overlord of the Div, Godbreaker. Session 1, Mythology. Let's talk about it. Who is Ahriman? Well, if you have followed any of the Pathfinder lore over the last few years, you've probably run into this guy. Unlike my conversion of Kavarko, my first primordial I talked about a couple months ago, I believe I had a series of videos about him. That was a remaster of a old school D&D primordial entity by the name of Crystalli. But with this guy, Ahriman is already a Pathfinder creation, so I don't need to do as much remastering for him. It's more so adapting for my game world. So hey, who is Ahriman? Why am I using him? What's going on? Before I get into the specifics of him, let's talk about the reasons I'm even looking at this guy. If you go back to when my game world was first just straight D&D 5e version, I was doing a lot of home brewing of different, races and such. And one of the areas I was looking at was home brewing some tiefling variants. And so that's when I first stumbled across the idea or the concept of not necessarily Ahriman, but the idea of Div, the creatures, the spawn that Ahriman is, I guess, the god of. And the Div were in the Blood of Fiends supplement here, which I have opened up. And they were a subtype of Tiefling. And they were spite spawn. They were the half bastard children of Div. And when I looked at what the heck a Div is, I found out that these spite spawn, these children of these Div, they are evil genies, corrupted genies, that have gone over to fiendish side of the coin. And the reasons for that get into the lore of Ahriman. But for me, it was very exciting because I was developing a underdark game world, so I was looking for stony, earthy, that sort of bloodlines of different creatures and such. And so for a tiefling, I wanted something that was could be earthy. And if you look at the div, they're, like I said, these evil genies, and the genies themselves, like if you look at the Ifrit and the Jin, whatever you want to say, the Dao was specifically the type I was looking at, Earth genies, right? So it just kind of clicked for me that Earth, fire, genies, the div being evil genies, they could be my origin of tieflings, my game world. So I went with it. Fast forward, whatever, 3 years now to switching over to the Pathfinder system, the with the remastered rules and the whole purpose of these videos. I'm trying to convert all my stuff from 5e over to Pathfinder 2e. And so it's pretty easy to move the Spite Spawn over because they were already in Pathfinder's game world, except for the mechanics, of course. But the lord of these things, the god of these things, which I had heard of Ahriman, but I didn't really do anything with it. But as I'm now expanding my game world and making these primordials a bigger piece, uh, I needed to really expand who was in charge of these creatures, where they came from, and so I really started diving into Ahriman. So that's what I'm talking about here. Pathfinder First Edition has a lot more information about him actually than Pathfinder Second Edition. He appears in the Bestiary or the Bestiary 3 on page 82. He's in the Inner Sea Gods book, page 190. He's in the Inner Sea World Guide, 188 through 189. Lots of information, lots of background about him, some deity information, etc. He does make an appearance more recently in Pathfinder Second Edition, along with the div that are his his followers. And again, in the Bestiary 3, page 68. So really not much has been done with him in the second edition, aside from what you see here in the green bordered little cutout here from that bestiary guide. There is a little bit of information about it, but most of it comes from first edition is what I'm relying upon. And then I also found a nice lore video by a creator by the name of Mimicry who has summarized a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about and what I've learned in my own research. And this is the image that you'll see of Ahriman in the first edition. I think it was the one of the Inner Sea books, if I'm not mistaken, is where this one came from. I don't know who the artist was, but it's not mine. So anyway, this is where I got a lot of the lore. And as far as conversion goes to my game, I'm actually using a lot of this information because it does tie into the div, and the div, as I just mentioned, tie into my game world nicely as a Darklands Vaults version of the Tiefling. So anyway, that's where I got started. So I have a lot of information already. So what I'm doing now is taking this foundational information, combining it with my game world lore, making a lot of conversions just to tie things together from not from necessarily the mechanics side of things, but just from how does this concept of divs and the evil genies and Ahriman fit into the vaults? So that's what I want to talk about today because I spent the last couple weeks really diving into this because I have a player character who is worshiping this guy, as a matter of fact. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about is how I don't want to create primordials or entities to be worshipped that are just good or evil. I'm agreeing in the sense of getting rid of alignment, like Pathfinder has done, and so that has to carry over to my gods. Even they can be good or evil or whatever. So even though this guy is pretty nasty and his goals are pretty bad, I'm trying to build him so that, and that's my second point here, my design goals. I'm trying to make him so he has some sympathetic motivation. So hopefully I've managed to pull that off. We'll talk a little bit about that today in the video. And then the main meat and potatoes of the video, of course, is the mythology. What's this guy about? Who is he? Where did he come from? How does he tie into my game's lore? Not specifically the Pathfinder, Galarian lore. And then the third thing here, and this is the other big change as far as this video compared to my Kavarka one, is that I really want to dive into how do you make this mythology, how do you make this lore useful? How do you make it what I would say is actionable? So as I went through the design process here, I wanted to make sure that I was creating connections between this guy and the societies, the cultures, the locations of the game world. I wanted to make sure that he was going to serve as a driver or a restrainer of the plot, and for sure he is. He is one of my main forces of chaos in one of my two games that's just started last month, the end of last month. And also, I'm going to talk about how, if he is a worshipable entity, how does that fit into clerics and champion options for my game world? And perhaps, this is ideas for you in your game world out there, other folks who might be creating their own, Pathfinder based homebrew. So those are my goals, and I'm really gonna lean into this number 3 today. So I'm gonna hopefully you'll find this useful or entertaining at least. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Here we go. So as with my Kavarka process, I start with a template, and I work with ChatGPT, and I'll take this template, feed it to her. I call her to her because I don't know. I refer to her as Kathy. Okay, she's my AI muse. And so I take my guiding questions here. I take the lore from Ahriman from Pathfinder in this example. I take the lore of my own notes from my own game world, and I feed it into ChatGPT, and I have her help me answer these questions. And from the answers, I'll generate and flesh out the big old honkin' mythology for this entity. So the rest of this video is going to dive into this history of Ahriman, his status in the game world, description, What's he known for? His renown, realm. Where is he living? Where is he in charge? And goals. What does this guy want? How is he going to drive plot or restrain the plot? How is he going to interact with the player characters possibly? So these are the six major areas that I dive into with mythology. The next video I'll follow up will get into his religion, and the video after that will get into his cult. But the main stuff is this is mostly just about him today. So this is the template I use, and I start getting the answers to these questions and then design and flesh out each of these topics in a narrative. So what I want to do though is rather than just dumping that lore on you, I want to go back to this idea of actionable lore. So I'm going to get a bunch of answers and a bunch of narrative to these questions here. But how do you then take the information and make it useful for you and for your players? Because if you're just getting narrative, fluff, it doesn't help you if you never actually use it. So I think from the get-go, as you're designing primordials, or if you're designing, NPCs, you're designing factions, you're designing locations, whatever it is you're putting together for your homebrew, your Pathfinder game here, make sure it's actionable, something you can use it for, right? It should have a purpose. So that's what I'm talking about when I say actionable. I want to make sure there's some sort of connection with the game world, society, culture, locations. I want to make sure there's connections with drivers, restrainers of the plot. It's moving things forward, slowing things down. I want to make sure that player characters can interact with this thing, perhaps as clerics or champions, or simply doing some sort of downtime or exploration activities that'll give you more information. So that's what you're going to see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break each of those sections of my answers, history, status, description, etc., and pull out a scenario that you could present in game as an example, that then your player characters could use and do something with to get the lore information. So hopefully this makes sense as I go through that. So history, I've got some lore, but rather than me just dumping it out there on my player characters, how can I get them to learn it? How can I get them to engage with it? How can I get them to, explore it? So here's the scenario. Let's say your PCs, they hear this name Ahriman. They're battling it out or spying on some elemental cultists, and they want to know more about this guy. Ahriman, who's that? What's that? One of them perhaps knows there's some secluded sanctuary that has ancient archives, some scrolls and tomes from ancient times, and the archive is overseen by a bunch of scholarly monks. And it's rumored to hold secrets of the birth of the cosmos when elements were nothing but forces of chaos shaped by genies. So they've got some sort of loose idea in their head. Elemental cultists. There's this sanctuary with some scrolls about ancient elemental chaos times. Maybe they can learn something there. So the PCs go to this sanctuary and they try to get permission to access these hidden archives. The monks, the guardians of the texts, they're like, well, maybe not. They're gonna be hesitant. There's maybe some negotiation there, whatever. They agree to give access. Maybe they ask for a favor in return, or they ask for the players to pledge, some money or whatever. Who knows, right? But here's where you can, start to make this something the players can do. Now you've given them this clue, Ahriman. You've given them a location where they could go. And then when they get there, they have something to do, some sort of exploration mode or downtime activity skill checks. So as an example, they might have an arcana or a religion check when they get to the sanctuary. Maybe there's an arcana check once they start looking at these scrolls to try to interpret the mystical and the cosmic, terminology they see on the scrolls, trying to figure out what all this elemental jibber jabber is all about. Maybe somebody needs to make a religion check to comprehend the divine influence in cosmic creation that the genies had and the big design of the gods. And so if you make this roll or have the players make this roll, you can now divulge some of your lore. And so that is what I want to show you how that could then be portrayed. So, scenario, you set it up, you want to communicate some of your lore, your player characters make a little trip, they do some negotiation, they now are making skill checks. What could you tell them? How could you tell them stuff that is from your lore that you've created for Ahriman or whatever deity that you are homebrewing? So here's an example of what I came up with. Click to that, and let me play this for you.
In the dawn times of the cosmos, when the stars were young and the worlds unshaped, the genies emerged as master architects and builders. Among them, Ahriman shone brightest, an elemental entity of quintessence itself, revered for his boundless creativity weaving the filaments of inception. Ahriman, with his kin, toiled in the grand cosmic design, their work heralded across the heavens. The universe, in its infancy, was a canvas upon which the genies painted the visions of the gods. As the grand construction of the cosmos neared its completion, the fate of the genies took a tragic turn: imprisonment and servitude to the whims of mortals.
So there you go. There's an example of how you could have that adventure, that little side quest, turn into a lore reveal. And by the way, the voice acting that you're hearing, this is another AI system by the name of Typecast that I'm using, and you're able to take your text and put it in there, and become a director of the various AI voice actors to give some sound to your text. And that might be an interesting way to present this in game, as a matter of fact, right? So maybe this is an NPC communicating this, or maybe this is just that all-knowing narrator type of voice that you're throwing out there. But this lore is what I came up with the assistance of Kathy there, from the original Ahriman stuff from Pathfinder, from my own game world concepts, and fused it together. This is what my players could find out from those checks at that sanctuary. And then, let's say as a follow-up, they want to know more about this genie, this Ahriman. So they decide, they know some ruined ancient temple dedicated to elemental fire. It's located maybe, I don't know, a few days away on the slope of some desolate volcano or whatever. And it's, pretty renowned for fierce elemental surges. And the legends say that this temple is this nexus of powerful and forbidden knowledge, a place where the veil between fire elements and fiendish demonic influences is very thin. So the party would travel there to get some more information. You're starting to build an entire quest out of your lore at this point. And they find amidst the charred remains of this temple that's still smoking. Maybe there's some active lava flows through there, whatever. They see there are these cryptic murals on the walls, inscriptions and pictures, and they seem to be hinting at some dark transformation. And so the PCs are trying to decide, trying to decipher these clues, investigate what's going on. What is the story that's hidden in this writing and in these pictures on the walls? So again, we have another scenario here where you can start dumping some lore to give. In this case, I want to communicate the status of Ahriman. Like, what is he up to lately? Like, what's going on? Since we know a little bit about history, what's the present for this guy? So skill checks. You're at this temple. Occultism. You're trying to figure out, to decipher what these symbols even mean and understand any connections between elemental forces and demonic energies. Maybe somebody has lore and elements or elemental planes or planar, magic or whatever. You can have them make a check to draw upon that knowledge, understanding the interactions with elementals and their history, their lore, that kind of stuff, and make those checks. And depending on what their roles are, they can then get some more of your lore. So here's another example of that I came up with for my boy Ahriman here. Go ahead and mute myself.
In the secret forges of a world where elemental fires raged unbound, Ahriman discovered a wellspring of demonic energy. He embraced this chaotic power, breaking his bonds and freeing his fellow genies in a cataclysmic revolt that shook the foundations of the cosmos. Ahriman's army of genies corrupted by chaos, waged a relentless campaign against the gods and their followers. The universe, once a testament to their craftsmanship, became a battleground for a crusade against the divine order.
So in that example, you can imagine that your player characters interpreted the symbols. Maybe that was the story, is like a bunch of panels telling the tale of Ahriman's revolt. So that would be another fun, interesting way to communicate your lore without just lore dumping, right? Without people having to find a book and read it, right? Making some just single lame-o check at a library. They actually went somewhere, maybe had a little fight or something on the way, and maybe there's some fire cultists here, or there's some, worshippers of Ahriman here. Something is going on here, because now maybe Ahriman is catching wise that these PCs are starting to snoop into his business, so he starts dispatching his agents of chaos and anarchy to stop the player characters. All right, let's continue. So third scenario, right now we want to get into how can we reveal even more lore about our mysterious primordial. So the player characters trying to find out more. They learn there's some secretive and powerful order that's been influencing the course of history from the shadows for a while. And this order has a bunch of learned sages, mages, that sort of thing. They got this vast hidden library. They know stuff, right? A lot of forbidden knowledge, things that you can't just find in a standard library. So the PCs try to find the secret order. Maybe they have to do some, other little mini quests to prove themselves to these people. But once they're able to get inside, they're able to start to search these ancient tomes for more scrolls that have these, truths about the world's, hidden knowledge. So with this one, you could have a society check going where they're trying to the PC's trying to navigate the hierarchy, the customs of this order that they've learned about, the secret order, trying to get access to this place. They have to know who these people are to try to, find them. Maybe someone has some lore in secret societies or cults or something like that, and they can make some checks. So if they're able to do this, successful checks, again, the players can uncover more of the lore of your world, of your primordial, of this guy Ahriman. So let's take a look at our next example. This will be the history of Ahriman.
The genies were reduced to servitude to the newly born mortal races. Their once proud role as creators was forgotten. This betrayal cut deep into Ahriman's fiery heart, transforming his passion for creation into a burning desire for destruction. Though ultimately defeated by the gods and banished to Abaddon, a barren world bereft of elemental energy, Ahriman's spirit remains unbroken. He vowed to overturn the divine decree, destroy all the work of men, and restore genies to their rightful place as architects of creation. To the secret learned orders who hold true power over the worlds, Ahriman's legacy casts a dread shadow. For one day, the Prince of Anarchy will return and all that was made before will be sundered to ash and rubble.
All right, so there you go. That's how they can uncover the history of Ahriman and his place as a ongoing threat. So he's not just, some guy in the past. He is actively trying to trash the world, get revenge, get payback, and maybe this learned order uh, is in the crosshairs of this guy and his followers, perhaps. Maybe they deserve it. Maybe they stole. This would be an interesting concept. Maybe they have a whole fleet, for lack of a better term, of genies in bottles that are doing their bidding and have been doing their bidding for thousands of years, have been imprisoned, And you know what? Ahriman is pissed, and he's coming for these guys, and they know it. So maybe they're actually willing to get the PCs to help and share this information with them. Let's continue. The fourth scenario, excuse me, the fourth scenario, the PCs are hearing rumors of another mysterious cult operating out of a nearby city that's been gaining influence in different parts of the realm. This cult is led by an enigmatic figure known as the Wandering Spider. The cult's rapid rise, secretive nature have sparked curiosity and concern among those aware of its existence. Perhaps this learned order, perhaps some king or queen. They wonder if it's got any relationship with the elemental cultists that they had tussled with earlier a few weeks ago. So the PCs decide to infiltrate this other cult, or maybe they just want to observe them discreetly, investigate them, try to learn more about them and their leader and connections to Ahriman, if any. So they maybe try to sneak into some of their gatherings, disguise themselves. Maybe they interview some former members who have escaped and are deprogrammed or something. Maybe they find some secret communiques and are trying to decipher these things. Again, we've got some opportunities here for skill checks, for like discovering lore through an active process, through actionable, fun. So, example, deception checks in order to successfully blend in with the cult members and gather info without, arousing suspicion. Maybe there's a diplomacy check involved where they talk to one of the former members who's scared for their life, knowing that if this cult finds them, they're going to kill them. And so they need to somehow convince this person to share what they know, even though it might put them at even greater risk. So, PCs go through one of these checks, learn some information, and they will find out a little bit. And in this scenario, they interrogate or talk to one of the former cultists or are at the meeting and are getting this information. Let me pause my mic here and let you listen for yourself.
Banished initially to the desolate world of Abaddon for his rebellion, Ahriman's cunning knew no bounds. In a masterstroke of deception, he found a new vessel for his machinations, Pyenka, the wandering spider primordial daughter of the earth god Voculus. In the mortal realms, tales of Ahriman's past rebellions, his dominion over the Div, and his fearsome power continue to circulate. To some, he is a symbol of ultimate resistance against divine order. To others, a cautionary tale of ambition turned to hubris. Yet, in the undercurrents of these stories, there lies a truth waiting to be unveiled, the existence of a puppeteer lurking in the shadows, orchestrating a grand return.
So yeah, in that reveal, you've just upped the stakes about tenfold, right? We just found out that yeah, there is a connection between this wandering spider Payanka and this Ahriman. Uh, you're learning that Ahriman is some puppeteer pulling the strings behind lots of different stuff. He is orchestrating some escape, some return, some something. What's going on here? But you also discover that maybe he's not all bad, that there's, some people see him as sort of a good guy. He's fighting the good fight against the divine order. And in my game world, the vaults, the gods are seen as I guess evil because they abandoned the people of the vaults to the vaults. They've been, for lack of a better term, they're stuck here. They're getting to the surface, they can't do it. So for some people, what Ahriman is selling, they're willing to buy it. And then maybe in other circles, people are like, hey, this guy's way too dangerous. He thinks he's gonna take on the gods. That's madness. You can't do it. So now you've got this much broader intrigue is now, spreading from this initial encounter of, oh, I just, fought some elemental cultists, got the name Ahriman. There's another cult going on, and they supposedly worship somebody called the Wandering Spider. Now all of a sudden you've got a conspiracy on your hands. All right, let's continue. So the fifth scenario, as we continue our exploration of this guy, the PCs learn of an oracle that's renowned for her ability to see beyond the veil of reality into other realms, such as Abaddon. They've heard of this place Abaddon, but they're not sure. Like, well, what is it? Where is it? You know, this guy Ahriman, he's there. Is he stuck there? He's in prison. I mean, what's going on? We need to get some more information. So this oracle, they reside in a remote sanctum. They're said to have visions of the past, the future, glimpses into the darkest corners of the universe. So again, we have another journey on our hands. We have another location we can journey to. We have perhaps resistance being applied by, could be Payenka followers. It could be Ahriman's followers. It could be maybe some of these secret learned orders are like, hey, you guys are stirring up a hornet's nest. You need to stop. And they try to stop the party, or maybe people are encouraging the party to go get more information. And maybe some of the people that are encouraging the party to go get more information are actually agents of Ahriman pulling the puppet strings and getting the PCs to do the dirty work, right? You got a whole bunch of possibilities now. So the PCs, they're seeking insight into this Ahriman and his nature. They go to consult the oracle. They find her in a trance-like state. She's surrounded by all these ancient relics and symbols, and as they show up, of course, she's, I've been waiting for you, and would you like to see your future? Would you like to see this Abaddon in the true form of Ahriman? And we have another lore check here, another perception, well, another skill check. Could be perception, could be occultism, whatever, right? Perception to fully comprehend what they're seeing at this oracle is showing them, or occultism, trying to understand the symbolic significance of what Ahriman's form is and what it means in the greater, scheme of things. So again, we make some rolls, we make some checks, we get success. Let's say, what would your players learn from this? That's what this little, point of this lore engagement is all about. So let's take a look at this one.
In the desolate and blistered realm of Abaddon, Ahriman's form is a fearsome spectacle of elemental anarchy and chaotic fury. His lower limbs, resembling the talons of vultures, are instruments of destruction, tearing through flesh and bone with ruthless efficiency. His hands, mirroring the might of a massive tiger, bear claws so formidable they could rend giants in twain. His face, akin to that of a tiger, is marked by an expression of deep-seated hatred and crowned with four gnarled horns, each etched with ancient curses that speak of his time-weathered power and wrath. His eyes blaze like infernal fires, a window into the depth of his age-old rage and the turbulent history of his rebellion. From his gaping maw, inhuman screams emerge, not merely sounds of fury but harbingers of the enveloping darkness that transcends mere shadow, an embodiment of despair and anarchy.
So yeah, the creepy oracle speaking what she's seen, and you maybe sharing it with some scrying pool, or she's in your head or something. Who knows? And this is the imagery that your player characters are seeing. And they're making these checks to try to even comprehend, what does this mean. This could almost be like a Call of Cthulhu-esque type of, sanity roll or something at this point. All right, then the next scenario gets into investigating the aftermath of some event of devastation. So they return from this visit with the Oracle to find out that, the realm next to them, or maybe the realm they just left, has been devastated by some inexplicable, chaotic natural disaster. The locals believe they're cursed, or there's some, malevolent force afoot. And the land, which was, prosperous and wealthy and, fertile, is now just in ruins. And the landscape has been just altered in these unnatural, twisted versions of reality. And so the PCs are like, well, man, this smacks of what we just saw in that vision. Like, wow, we should maybe check this out. Is Ahriman loose already? Is he turning the world into Abaddon or something? So they go to visit this place to investigate what caused this devastation. As they travel the countryside, or they maybe visit some ruins or something, they encounter survivors, witnesses to what happened, and they find remnants perhaps, or even living members, these div themselves, and discovered these other planar entities. More skill checks. Maybe there's some nature checks going on. Maybe there's some more, planar lore that they have to make. Fiend lore or celestial lore. Could be something of that nature that they're skilled in. They make these checks to learn some more information. So, what might they gather from this journey, this encounter with some div, or just interviewing survivors? Well, let's check it out and learn about the renown of our evil, perhaps, at least chaotic, entity known as Ahriman.
Ahriman's reputation as a being of immense power and dread is well established. His capabilities in manipulating the elements of anarchy and chaos surpass the understanding of mortals, rivaling even the gods in their scale and intensity. With but a thought or a mere whisper, he can warp the very fabric of reality, bending it to his anarchic will. The creation of the thief stands as a testament to his formidable abilities. These corrupted genies are now extensions of his anarchic essence, wreaking havoc and spreading discord at his command. His power to incite rebellion, disorder, and upheaval through them is unparalleled, marking him as a master of cosmic subversion.
So from that side quest, they discover the div, and it's the div that were acting and causing this chaos, this devastation. Maybe there's some fight, there's some battle that happens. They've got to save survivors, or who knows what's going on. Why did the div strike this particular realm or this particular land? That would be part of that investigation. Then the players decide they need to start to go on offense here. So they figure we need to go to Abaddon and try to stop perhaps Ahriman where he lives. So the PCs learn there's some ritual that allows them to project themselves to other realms, and they want to go and see, because Ahriman's supposed to be imprisoned. He's supposed to have no power in this Abaddon, this desolate, elemental-less world. So how is he possibly acting here on this world? So they decide to make this perilous journey. This, we're talking higher level stuff now. This ritual, it's known to just a few people, this secluded sect of mystics or some reclusive mage. So the PCs have to find out who is this person, where are they? They have to try to convince them that they should do this spell or perform this ritual, which is not going to be cheap or not going to be easy. So the PCs have to prove that they're worthy, that they can do it. They have to maybe bring some of the materials for this ritual. But once they get access to it, they're going to take this journey to Abaddon and experience this place for themselves, but in like a spectral form. So maybe it's not a full-on journey, it's more of a recon mission. And they're going to have to make some arcana checks or religion checks or something like that, as they're there observing just from, the shadowiness of like the ethereal plane or astral projection or whatever it is. They go ahead and make these rolls to learn about one of the realms of Ahriman. So let's take a look at what they might discover from such a roll.
Ahriman was banished to this desolate and blistered realm following the crushing of his rebellion against the gods. Devoid of the elemental essence that once fueled his vast powers, Abaddon serves as Ahriman's lifeless prison. The air is thin and suffocating. The skies are perpetually overcast, blocking out any celestial light or hope. The surface is a bleak panorama of dust, sand, and crumbling stone. Its cold, parched surface is devoid of water or fire.
So from this little side quest, this recon mission, the players realize that this place itself holds no vitality, so it shouldn't be possible for Ahriman to be deriving any sort of energy from it, that to be able to project himself or his will from this place. Well, perhaps they discover that his presence is not present here, and so perhaps has he escaped already? What is going on? Further investigation, the PCs, they come across some mystical anomalies, perhaps unexplained events, either at Abaddon while they're there or when they return. Maybe it was something that they saw in that original devastated realm that they visited, and suggesting there's some powerful otherworldly force at play here. Perhaps this is a follow-up investigation to Payanka, and what her connection is to all this. And so their investigations lead them to the theory that all this stuff is actually connected not to Abaddon, but to another place known as the Netherweft, this enigmatic interdimensional realm that popped up in a couple of their research sessions or whatever it is. And so they try to figure out what's the connection between this Netherweft, the Abaddon location, Ahriman, Payanka. Trying to figure this out, they consult with some more experts in planar and interdimensional phenomena. Maybe there's a reclusive scholar, or some more mystics, perhaps related to the last ones. They try to find a way to perceive or interact with the Netherweft, which is designed as a off limits place that nobody can get to. It's thought to be some sort of prison, some sort of labyrinth that primordial entities were cast into. So the PCs are making arcana checks. They're making, planar lore checks, trying to interpret the signatures and these anomalies that they've been studying and making any connection if possible with the Netherweft. Trying to figure out a way to see into it if it's even possible. Their planar knowledge gives them information about these interdimensional realms such as the Netherweft, trying to figure out that it is a prison, or is Ahriman able to, would he be there somehow? If so, if could he see into the world from there? What would they learn? What could they find out? Let's check with the results of our lore.
Ahriman's influence extends into the Netherweft through his possession of Payenka. This shadowy, interdimensional web-like maze serves as both a prison and a vantage point, allowing him to observe and manipulate events across multiple worlds. While his physical form remains confined to Abaddon, his spirit and will traverse the pathways of the Netherweft, planning his return and the resurgence of his power.
So the players discover that he is somehow spiritually within Netherweft, and from that location, he's able to somehow project outward, even though his physical form is still trapped in Abaddon. So perhaps that original visit to Abaddon revealed he is there physically, but somehow his psyche, his spirit is not there. It is escaped, and it's in this Netherweft place, which in itself is a prison. But how did he get there? How is he projecting outside of this location? The PCs are trying to figure out more. What's going on? You're engaging them with your lore. You're giving them reasons to explore it. Ninth scenario, the final one. They're trying to unravel the big mystery. What is going on here? The PCs notice a pattern in the rise of the cult activities. These unusual alliances between different factions. Again, maybe they discover that they've been, played, and that some puppet master's been directing them. One of these factions they've been working with, perhaps. There's some sinister orchestration going on behind the scenes. There's rumors and whispers of a shadowy group known as the Usage, and along with growing influence of Payanka. And they uncover this grand plot. And the PCs go on another quest to piece together all these clues they've been gathering. This could be another infiltration type of mission. They're trying to interrogate key people at this meeting, uncover hidden documents, perhaps, trying to understand the full extent of Ahriman's influence and what is he up to. So they have to maybe make deception checks to infiltrate this cult meeting, or converse with people at the meeting who maybe they get them drunk or something, try to pump them for information. Maybe there's an intimidation check there where the PCs they corner one of these usage, I believe that's how you say it, usage cult members. That's one of these high-ranking guys, and beat him down or coerce him somehow into giving up the goods of what's going on with Ahriman and with Payenka and whatever else is happening. And this is the type of thing that they would then discover from your lore.
Ahriman's primary focus is on his liberation from the wastelands of Abaddon, aiming to reclaim his position as a formidable elemental force to challenge the gods for supremacy. His ambitions transcend mere vengeance. He is driven to undo the works of mortals, which were created through enslaved genies, envisioning a new world dominated by the unbridled forces of the elements, free from constraints of divine tyranny. To regain his power, Ahriman has masterfully orchestrated the corruption and weakening of organizations that might resist his release. Recognizing the importance of belief and devotion, he has used Payenka as both a sympathetic figure for mortal worship, which in reality fuels him, and as a target for the god's wrath. He has amassed numerous followers of Payenka, among the Morshal, Spitespawn, and Orog, who serve as agents of anarchy throughout the vaults. In addition, his own cult of nihilists, the usage secretly pull puppeteer strings, accelerating his return to this world.
Damn, she's pissed. But that would be the NPC that you just shook down in the back alley, beat her down to give you a confession. So she's not happy anyway. All right. So hey, final thoughts on this process. What you're trying to do here, you can create brand new, whatever you want in your game world. In this case, I'm creating a primordial, a god. I'm taking Ahriman from first edition Pathfinder, second edition Pathfinder, and adapting him over to my game world. But with that conversion, with that adaptation, there comes all this lore, all this creativity that you're able to generate. But you don't want to just dump these things into players' laps or not use it at all, or just assume it's in some book in some library, and if the players discover it, they just need to make a single, roll while they're in town, and you just slap 20 pages of, narrative on top of them. No. Encourage the players to go ahead and engage with that lore. If you incorporate it into your world, it's going to make the world alive. It's going to make the world dynamic. And the lore shouldn't just inform the players of stuff. It should be inspiring them to go somewhere. It's going to direct the campaign and move it someplace. And then you give the power to your players. Let them unravel these mysteries. Let them confront the consequences. Head on. Let them shape the game world with their investigations here. And notice the investigations don't just have to be investigation roles. There could be all sorts of types of skills and roles involved in order to uncover this stuff. And then what they're uncovering, these revelations, these are catalysts for conflict. They're gonna give you exploration opportunities. They're gonna give you intrigue. They're gonna challenge your players to navigate your world. So in summary, you have all this information, your 50 pages of lore, whatever it is, and you can turn it into actionable, usable stuff that your players will just sink their teeth into. And just that example that I just gave you, I mean, I've just laid out an entire 6-month long set of adventures just investigating Ahriman and what he's up to. And that might just be one single plot thread in a much bigger epic campaign like what I'm running. Anyway, hopefully you guys found some information useful here. As an example, it's kind of going through my own game world and the lore. So I didn't try to dump lore on you. I try to give it to you in a more engaging, actionable method. So if you like that kind of style, like this kind of information, you want to learn more about either homebrewing with Pathfinder, you want to learn more about the Vaults world itself, you're interested in what's going on, you know what to do. You go ahead and like the video, you subscribe to the channel, you throw some comments down below. Whatever it takes, let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what you want to see more about or what you're interested in, and I'll see if I can produce that for you. In the meantime, everybody have yourselves a good night. Have yourselves a good holiday weekend if you're here in the States with MLK Day, and take care of yourselves.